A very good afternoon to all. On behalf of Medical Education Unit AIIMS Bilaspur, it is my immense pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar on learning by reflection. And I'm sure it will be an enlightening session for all of us. Now I would like to request Dr. Poonam Verma, Additional Professor, Department of Physiology and Faculty in Charge Medical Education Unit at AIIMS Bilaspur, who has been the keen person in organizing this webinar series, and this is the fourth webinar. I request ma'am to kindly begin and moderate the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Anupma. My screen is visible?
Yes, ma'am.
So first of all, good evening to everyone. And this is our fourth webinar in webinar series 22-23. And we are conducting these webinars every month on a very relevant and important topic. So today we have a very learned speaker with us, Dr. Pooja Dulo. She is a director of Internal Quality Assessment Committee and professor physiology at Param Sukh Swami Medical College, Bhaikaka University in Gujarat. She has completed her MD and she has done his masters in health professional education from Keele University, London. And she is a FAMA fellow of 2012 batch. She has completed her ACME and PGDHHM. She is also a resource faculty for Department of Medical Education at her institute. She has received Best Teacher Award at Oman Medical College in 2010-11 and 11-12. She is also a reviewer for very eminent journals, and she has published many research articles in national and international journals. So welcome, Dr. Pooja. So I now request Dr. Pooja to start her session.
Thank you so much.
Those who are having any question, they can write in the chat box, and we will take up later after finish of the talk.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank Medical Education Unit of AIIMS Bilaspur for organizing such a wonderful series, webinar series for the various aspects of medical education. And that's basically a need of our. Hats off to you to initiate that series. Special thanks to Poonam ma'am for inviting me. I don't know how much learned I am, but I'll try my best to share my experience and whatever I have learned with you people. So basically whatever we are doing is something which we should share with each other so that everyone can add on the component and have a better understanding and better learning. I'll be sharing my slide. Just let me know if it is visible. Is it visible?
Yes, visible. Yes, visible.
Yes, ma'am. It's visible.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So the topic is learning by reflection, and the objectives what have been identified, what we will be able to cover up in this session. Although talking about reflection as a part of learning experience, we conduct 2 days training workshop on the topic of SDL. Along with that, we have training on reflective writing and assessment. I'll just try to give you an overview what exactly the reflection is and how we should proceed for the students to be trained in this particular aspect. So we'll, by the end of this session, probably we'll be able to identify the importance of being reflective, exploring the opportunities, demonstrating the reflective practice, and assessing the self and peer reflection, how we can go for its assessment. So the progress of the webinar will start from what is reflection, why to reflect, then when to reflect. We'll be going beyond reflection as well, how to reflect, challenges and hazards, and if the time permits, we will definitely talk about assessment of the reflection. So starting up with the learning, because we are talking about learning. Now, what exactly is learning. It's a dynamic process. It's a theory which is constantly being changed. New theories have evolved and they have emerged. So basically, if I want to talk about a learning, it ranges from gaining the knowledge, the skill, the competencies, and the behavior so that we can practice and have a continuous professional development. That's what we are doing right now here. So that's what is learning about. There are various skills which are being used and will be used not only in 21st century but also will be used in many centuries going ahead, the progressive centuries, starting from emotional intelligence, empathy, communication, collaboration, self-directed learning, and the most important, lifelong learner. That's what we would like to have our students achieve by the end of their medical or health professional program. And what exactly this term is coming from? Self-awareness. That is reflection. Have you ever reflected? Anyone? I'm sure you might have reflected. So we asked a question from a group of students of first MBBS and asked them what according to you is reflection. We just wanted to know what exactly they have an idea about reflection. These are the different options, the different components, what they have written. It's wonderful. Increases my self-awareness. It's being more of a third person in the same situation, which it was earlier, and then analyzing the situation from that perspective. It's much deeper than what we are talking about. Help me to link the past experience with the current or any future situation that I will face. Expect to improvise over my writing ability. So improving the writing ability is very important aspect as well. Encourage to make observation about our experience, help to become better thinker, and in turn a better learner. So they are very well aware that there is a concept of reflection, and that reflection is going to help them in a number of manners, either by ranging from increase in the self-awareness, linking of the past, using that experience for the past aspect what they will be doing, and being a better thinker. So thinking about a content, understanding in a better manner, having an emotional aspect associated with that what the individual is thinking, linking it to the values, the individual values, what we as an individual have prepared for us individually. We might be having different values, students might be having different values of their own. So connecting the thought and understanding and the feeling and the emotional aspect with that of the values what they have kept for them, exploring over it and finally analyzing. Now, what exactly is this? What exactly they are doing? Self-awareness, having an awareness of our own self. This is an interesting editorial which I came across last year. That's from Forbes in 2017. What it says that 95% of people think they are self-aware, but only 10% truly are. So that's something really interesting. We all might think that we are self-aware, but actually, are we really a self-aware individual or not? That's a question. And what they have talked about, that the reasons of this disconnect of feeling that we are self-aware and actually being self-aware in a true sense. The first reason what they talked about is blindfolded, like blind spot. We operate at an auto pilot mode, irrespective. We are not aware of about how we behave, why we behave in that particular situational context. There's a second thing what they said, that there's also a feeling good effect, that we feel, oh, I'm very positive. That's really good. I know everything. I can do anything what I want. And last but not the least factor what they talked about is cult of self. That is the idea that we have become more self-absorbed. As in the social media, even if I'm not well mentally, emotionally, if I click a nice photograph of mine, upload it on the social media, and if I get the likes, that means, oh, I'm good. Everybody is thinking that I'm good, and then I feel good about it. So getting absorbed in something which truly is not a real context where I have a better outcome. It's just a momentary thing. That's what Fobe editorial talked about. So what exactly is reflection? John Drew from 1859 to 1952, he has been an influential writer, educational, talking about the educational thoughts and practices. He said that the initiation of concept of knowing a thing starts from a reflective thinking approach in learning and education. And how it initiates, how the thinking is being originated by having a state of doubt or a hesitation or a confusion in one's mind, and then trying to act to search for it, have an approach to find the material where I can clarify my doubt, clarify this confusion within my mind, so that I can have a settlement. That is what the John Drew talked about. And from EME Guide 44, the Sanders says, if I talk about what is being talked about, there are many definitions what the researchers have talked about reflection. Sanders said it is a metacognitive process that occurs during, before, after the situation with a specific purpose, developing greater understanding of self and the situation what is going around, so that the future encounter with the similar situations are being informed. Now, this is a big definition, having all the points pointed out well categorically, having metacognitive process. I think you had an webinar series earlier on metacognition. Now it is based on something which is during, before, and even after the situation has happened, so that we can make our future better. So if I want to say that it is an exposure to diverse setting or diverse circumstances, complex situation, a multiple exposure is getting identified in this particular aspect, so that as we move from a novice to an expertise, we have a better understanding to work in a situation where there are multiple exposures, making my understanding far better. That is what reflection talks about. It comes from an Latin word which is termed as a reflectere, which means to bend or to turn back. So it's a metacognitive activity. In that, there is a thinking about an action or thinking about a thinking itself. As you all know, that metacognition has two separate phenomena. The first phenomena comes up knowledge about cognition. What is needed to be performed effectively? Can they take steps, then can we have steps to meet that demand of learning situation? That is what knowledge about the cognition. And the second important aspect in metacognition is regulating that cognition, how we can regulate. So we need to check the outcome of an attempt to solve a problem. So we plan for the next move, we monitor the move, we try to have attempts for it, we test, we revisit, and finally we evaluate. And once everything goes well or it doesn't go well, we again move into the same process of re-evaluation. So metacognition is a very important aspect for reflection. So what is here? Thinking about any incidents or a situation, analyzing the situation, interpreting it, evaluating it, and finally taking corrective step or corrective measures or corrective actions. So what does this mean? This is a flow chart. That means reflection is a process. So first thing coming up to our mind is that reflection, it is a structured process. Now, why should we learn to reflect? What is the reason? Why should we ask a student to learn? Before we tell these stories to our students, we should know about it ourselves, so that we are sure that what we are talking is making a sense. The first important thing that reflective learning tries to convert the short-term memory into a longer-term one. Once it is a longer term, for better performance, it improves our performance. Once the performance is improved, we know that minimum with a limited number of resources and with a limited time frame, we are able to complete that particular task, because our knowledge has moved from a short term to intermediate and finally to a long term memory. Similarly, we can also have the approach where we can choose the best solution for difficult aspect. If there is a situation, we have the ability, by reflecting, we have the ability to choose the best solution at that time. How we can choose the solution? We can develop our own ways of managing the things. We can be innovative. We can have new ideas to actually complete that particular task. So that is one way how we can be an innovator with a new sense. What will it help us for? It will help us to develop a positive relationship. Positive relationship not with our own self, but also with other people and with the surrounding. That's the important thing what it will give us. And it will also help us to be a self-directed learning. We want our students to be a self-directed learner. So that's what the reflection will allow them to go for. Keep on adding the information and try to learn it. The most important thing that reflection will allow them to be a critical thinker by reasoning, by solving problems, by evaluating it to a better extent. So it will try to solve a problem in a very sequential, stepwise manner, because the individual has been a reflective thinker and has reflected upon the previous experience, and addition to that experience has created a new one. Either the new one is based upon some literature, or it is based upon his own new innovative ideas. It can be either way around. So this is how actually the information by the reflective writing, the student will have an enhancement in learning process. What does it mean? We are having contact in day-to-day life with either patients, if we are from a clinical background, with the colleagues, the relatives, the non-medical staff. If we are from a pre-paraclinical specialities or allied health science specialities, probably we are having more interaction with the students, with our colleagues, with our administrative departments like deans and HODs, and non-teaching staff. So whenever we are deciding about a problem being solved, whenever we are making a decision for any specific problem which we encounter during day-to-day routine aspect, or when we are dealing with the team, with a non-teaching staff or with the students, we evaluate the decision what we make at that time. And that decision, what we have evaluated, will be used as a self-evaluator, and it will influence our future. I'll give an example. When I first became a medical teacher, I taught physiology. I was very young. The dress which I wore was the normal dress what every teacher, young teacher used to wear, a salwar suit. My HOD called me and told me that if you want to make a difference between yourself being at a teaching level compared to that of the students, you need to change your attire. So start wearing a sari when you teach, when you are in a lecture. So that is the evaluation, what was being done for a problem, because the students never took me seriously. They felt that I'm a very young MD student, just cleared my MD and just became an assistant professor. So they never took me seriously. So changing the behavior, changing the attire, making myself assertive and presentive, that was the self-evaluation with the help of my supervisor, and that influenced the future. So that is how this reflective component comes into being. We do it in teaching in day-to-day life as well. So when we say that why we reflect, because it is a mental activity. It is an active learning process. It involves thinking on thinking, that is metacognitive function, and relate it to the intellectual activity. It can be done anytime, as we already mentioned, and it can be stored in a long-term aspect. The other very important thing is that it increases the experiential learning process, what we learn from our experience in day-to-day life, and it makes sense of the situation. Making sense means making meaning out of what we are doing. So if I say that reflection has to be an integral part of a learning, yes, it's true. So it is a process, and it is a process which is having a purpose. And what is the purpose? Is to make sense of the situation so that I do better in a similar type of a situation in your future. So we can say that reflection is process with a purpose. As we know that the scientific cultural are getting advanced, new diagnostic avenues, therapeutic measures are coming up by different researchers. Even use of digital technology is enhancing to a very great extent. So our teaching learning process, our assessment process, our treatment process, our diagnosis process are getting changed within a short span of a time. So what we know that health professional knowledge and skills are dynamic. If they are dynamic, that means we need to learn about it throughout our life. We cannot keep on holding the hand and holding the finger of our students till they actually are up to the level what we say an expertise. We need to let them go. Let them learn the skill of being a lifelong learner. And that is where the reflection is going to help them out. We need to train students. We need reflection to be a part of a curriculum. As we all know that NMC has now kept reflective writing as a part of, in foundation also there is a part where they are being trained for it, how to write a reflection. And second, very important, they are being asked to reflect upon the stuff. So that's what as per the curriculum component has been modified upon, because NMC has made it that an Indian medical graduate needs to be a self-directed learner and has to be a lifelong learner. So reflection is a very important part of it. So looking back to go to forward, that is what reflection is, to make a better and good forward move. For that, we need to look back. Before we go ahead, I would like to talk something beyond reflection. We all know that, we all keep on reflecting, we all know what reflection is. But what is beyond that? Do we want students to be good reflectors or something else? Actually, we want our students to be good reflectors. We want our students to be critical reflectors. So they should know about critical reflection. And the most important thing, we want students to be having a reflexivity. We have explored about reflection, what exactly the reflection is. That it's exploring the thought, having a metacognitive approach, being intellectual level, having a feeling aspect inside it. It's a constant process. It is a process with a purpose. So that is what a reflection is. Then what is critical reflection? Is it different? Yes. Reflection becomes critical when two aspects are involved. Now, what are those two aspects? The first is when the information or the reflection is fundamentally enough. That means it is deeply well reflected, that it is causing a transformation within myself. Then that reflection reaches to the level of critical reflection. If there is no transformative change, then it is right, okay, you're just writing your thought without any outcome. So having a reflection that transforms an individual is critical reflection. That is what we want students to be, a critical reflector. The second aspect to be a critical reflector is, which is based on analysis of power dynamics. Now, what exactly is power dynamics? Whenever a situation, in a particular situation, whatever I have acted upon, now I'm reflecting on it. Now, when I reflect upon this particular option, this particular situation or an observation, I'm trying to reflect so that next time I have a similar type of an encounter, same or similar type of an encounter, I do fare much better. So I'm trying to analyze what I have done and what I should be doing about it. This is the sequence within a particular situational context. But this is an external environment. The situation may be different. The task may remain the same. So I need to attain an information and approach I need to create an approach within my reflection that even if the situation change, because it is an outside environment, I cannot have a control over it. It's beyond my control. To some extent I may, but mostly I may not be able to control it. It's an external environmental factor. So I have to try to make a balance between the external and the internal. Try to equilibrate it. I may not have an exact balance, but try to equilibrate it so that there is a maximum democratic relationship between the external and the internal context. And I can use that reflection in any sort of situation of similar or a dissimilar context. That is very important as far as critical reflection is concerned. Let me make a simple example. What happened and why it happened, and the explanation of the why it happened. That is up to the level of a reflection, a general reflection. But if I want to make it as a critical reflection, why it happened in terms of what I should be doing to prevent that, why that incorrect thing happened, or how I can improve what good happened, how I can make it better and best. So what and how in context of my change, my way of dealing the situation. That is what is critical reflection. What and why initially is a reflection. When we move from why it happened in terms of what and how I can deal with it in my self context, that is critical reflection. So we want our student not only to reflect, but to be a critical reflector, because that is what ultimate goal is. So add the issue of power, that is, and the external environment. Keep thinking deeply, which will improve the learning ability. That means create a change in the depth of understanding the issue and trying to frame an action plan which will be used in near future. So that's up to critical reflection. Now there's another term, reflexivity. That is looking too closer, too deep, too intricate thing. What exactly it is? I will break the reflexivity word into smaller halves, which actually means what the final meaning of reflexivity is. What does mean? Doing it again, repetitive. Reflex, as we all know that we are from medical background, reflex means automatic, involuntary. It should happen like heart has an automatic response, beats. Flex means showing power, showing that I am able to do that, I can do that, that power, that self-achievement. Reflex, that means flexi. Flexi means being flexible. As we have, we know what flexible means as such. IVT, whenever the IVT comes up, we know that it is an action verb and it means doing. So when we are doing the things in an automatic manner, showing the power of ourself so that we are able to control the external factors, or we are able to act in making a balance between the external and internal factors within ourselves. And we need to be flexible because it is a dynamic process. So we need to change our approach to deal with a situation. That is what reflexivity means. So it is a systematic way of reflecting. It's nothing less than that. It's a reflection, but it's a systematic way of reflection where reflection is connecting not only you with the external environment, but to the another individual also. But I being in center. That means it is a way of looking at yourself, implication in a situation where you are reflecting upon. Let's talk about a treasure map. You all know that treasure map, it has a big X in it. Similarly, reflexivity, reflexive, reflection, complexity, they all have X in it. But what is the beauty of this X? Something is there. E and I is before and after every X in every word of it. So what does it mean? X is the mark spot, is the point where we have to reach. And I is the individual, the internal factors which are driving to have a better outcome. E being the environmental, the external factors. So we need to develop an emotional intelligence in such a way that we not only maintain the values of ourselves, but also of others, and also about the organization where we are working. It's more as far as the social attributes, what we are giving to the society after a particular act or particular deed. So reflexivity talks about how we do connect with the external environment and exploring our relationship with others. The most important thing in the reflexivity is through the mirror, where our own action, thoughts, feelings, values, and identities are being expressed, but we are keeping in mind how those acts, what we are trying to do, is affecting the other. That means we are thinking about others. We are thinking about the other people, the act, what we are doing in the situation. And that in turn is going to have an effect. Whatever change we make in our reflection, a critical reflection, that is going to affect other people in a good or an off manner. It depends how you are acting. And finally, it is going to affect the society. That's a true fact. So when an individual mental process of reflection moves from reflection to critical reflection and then think about others' act, that if I am acting in this manner, how it is going to influence the society, how it is going to influence other peer people or the people within the professional background. That is what reflexivity is. That is what we should allow our student to reach up to. Not only reflexivity, because reflection is just one part of it. You reflect and then you go ahead, but that is only about being more self-aware. But when you deal this self-awareness with a critical outcome and connect the effect of that outcome, how it is going to affect other people within the society or our peer colleagues or our professionals or the community as a whole, that is what the reflexivity is. We should allow our students to reach to that level, although we are in center. So reflection, it is an ongoing process. Go and see, plan, act, and reflect. Then again, modify the plan of action and then act accordingly. So it's going to be a repetitive cycle. There are different methods of reflection. These are few which I have just posted here. Others are reflective essays, which mostly are being used at different medical institutes internationally before they are being admitted to medical profile or any other admission process. They have to write a reflective essay that why they want to be in this profession and so on and so forth. So that is also a way of reflection. So what is the application of reflection, where we are going to use it and how we are going to use it? Mainly three components. One is for learning, that is self-directed learning and being a lifelong learner. Second, to develop a therapeutic relationship and to develop a professional practice. For learning, we will talk a bit later. Let me just have a brief glimpse about how to the application of reflection to develop a therapeutic relationship or a professional practice. Now, as far as the Cole and MacLean in 2000 specified that the therapeutic relationship, what exactly it means, it is a trust and a rapport established between a doctor and a patient through collaboration, communication, therapeutic empathy, and mutual understanding and respect. Isn't this what we actually want our students to have, to think about? So this therapeutic relation is a very essential component of what? Professionalism. In our profession, this is what is, there are four pillars. You remember there are four major pillars of professionalism. Other than having a baseline of strong knowledge, cognition, skills, psychomotor components, there are four pillars, and these are the four basic pillars we need to work upon. So identifying and challenging the current belief, assumptions, need to be identified and how we are going to address it so that a therapeutic relation, a good therapeutic relation gets created by reflection. Simple questions. What can be asked? What I am feeling and what are my emotions about? When we have a therapeutic response, we want to identify. Why do I feel like this? Dealing with the patient. Are there any other circumstances where I feel the same? Can I explain why do I feel like this? What could be the consequence of these for me and others? See, what we are trying to make them think about themselves so that they have a better action plan and think about others also. So we are making them go towards the reflexivity. That's a very important thing. Now let's talk a bit about professional practice, how a reflection to develop professional practice comes up. So we are making them move professionally from a novice first year going up to the level of expertise. We want them to reflect on the actions, because when they reflect on their action, they are developing a mental framework. It looks boring, but actually it is very interesting if they have that idea that how it is going to help them. Because as they keep on developing a mental framework, they are repeating it, they are doing it again and again. So what is happening? As a physiologist, we know that as you keep on doing this stuff, you are making the information move from a short-term to a long-term memory. So you're going towards a superficial to a deep learning approach. So that's a very important thing. The other aspect of reflection as a professional practitioner is to accommodate the diverse perspective. Having an idea about what other people have thought about it, enriching the view so that they become so that their reflective outcome, whatever they are having, so that which they can be using in near future, enacts the diverse culture, and they become very strong on a global platform. That is what we actually want them to have in the practitioner practice, with a positive outcome and being professionally a problem solver, or what we say critical thinker to solve a problem and make a decision out of it. So what exactly we are trying to make them? Develop their professional identity formation. Now this is a big topic as in itself, how it works and how reflection helps. We are not going to touch it. Maybe next time, if the opportunity is there, we can talk more about it. So these are the attributes or the application of those reflection to make an individual as a professional, to have all the attributes of professionalism. Second, to frame their professional identity formation. So talking about how the application of reflection is being used for learning process, because we are more focused, our topic is related to the learning by reflection. So I'll be focusing more about it. We have an experience, our students have an experience, and then an act happens, and after the act, they reflect on that act. So they are expanding their knowledge. It was Kolb in 1984 who presented an experiential learning cycle. So it is a cycle process. It goes on and on. Where is the start? That we have a concrete experience. We have a back experience. Our students have a back experience because they are adults. Something happens, they observe that, and that observation is being reflected. And after reflection, of that observation, what they have written down, they conceptualize about it. They make an abstract out of it. Now, what they're going to do, they're going to have a newer information, newer technique, newer management protocol, or maybe they might change a bit what they have already used in a different manner, depending upon the situation, depending upon the observation what they have made. So that is experimentation. So they will be experimenting, that is action. And once that action has done shown its result, again it becomes an old concrete experience, and the cycle keeps on going. So it's a cycle where it starts from concrete experience, observing the reflection, having a concrete conceptualization of what they have observed from the reflection, and finally experimenting by either with the new or modifying the old one, anywhere around. That is an action. As a physiologist, I would like to say that the test is done by the premotor area, that's the prefrontal parietal area. Sensory, what does it do? It just gathers the information. Stimuli. The temporal lobe integrates it's an integrator of the cortex area. So it reflects, thinks about it, what is happening, why it happened, by observing by different stimuli, either from visual, from auditory, from sensory part. And the prefrontal area in the frontal lobe will try to have a new idea developed either by their own self or from the earlier information by modifying it a bit. Now comes when to reflect. When should we be reflecting? Normally, what we say that it should be a quiet environment. Is there any question till now? Hello? Am I
Any
audible?
question? Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. Okay. Please write the questions in the chat box. I'll take the questions once the presentation is over. And if there is something really important you want me to stop there, just unmute yourself and you can just speak the question. Now, when to reflect? That's a very interesting thing. Normally, what do we say? That it should be a quiet environment. I should have a personal space. I should think about it, and then we can reflect better. But to be very honest, we reflect every time. As I am giving you this webinar, I'm speaking in this webinar, I'm reflecting. I'm trying to recollect what happened and how it is going on, how the process is going on. I wish if it would have been face to face, I would have been seeing the faces as well. And that those observation on the faces is going to tell me how you are behaving, how you are taking my presentation. But because it is online, so I don't know, everyone has kept their videos off. Many of the researchers, they argue that reflection is action oriented and it is driven by political and social stigmas. So what we can say, reflection is a mass culture effect, and it is it has an historical background being embedded within itself. So reflection is shaped by ideology and vice versa. Ideology shapes the reflection. It depends how your reflection may be different from my reflection depending upon the background, depending upon the way I have been grouped. So you can reflect anytime. But there has to be a trigger situation. I cannot keep on reflecting and writing reflection and thinking about it for even trivial things. No, there has to be a trigger point, a situation, an act. The outcome of a process which increases the understanding and makes me self-aware. That is what is required. Just sole understanding the situation is not going to help us. What normally the students nowadays are doing, if I tell them to reflect, they just write what has happened, they just give a description, they add a bit of feeling about it, they say how it is going to help, and the future plan is like very dicey type. So that is not going to be helpful to them in near future. There has to be an insight to change the future, that yes, this is the mistake what I did and this is how I'm going to improve over this mistake in near future of a similar or maybe exactly same type of a situation if I ever encounter. That insight has to be triggered, that has to be kicked upon. So what we said, that reflection, firstly, it is a process, it's an active thing, and this process is having a purpose. We should never forget that it has a purpose. If we don't have a purpose of any reflection, then to be very honest, it will be just writing it on a piece of paper without any substantial insight or self-awareness modification. There, you might have encountered many incidences like transformation of Siddhartha to Buddha. There was also a critical incident where there was a transformation in Bhagavad Gita for Arjuna to have a victory over evil. Do you really need to have these types of critical incidences only then we can reflect? No, that's not true. The incidences which are having some substantial meaning, which are making me aware about something went well or something didn't go well. These two aspects, any of these two aspects, if there are coming, that is an event. That is a situation where an individual should reflect. And that can happen in a dissection hall, skilled lab, practical lab, after the end of any unit, feedback after the feedback for the formative assessment, ECE visit, seminar, specifically for the PG seminar and journal club. End of posting, they can reflect. Even a conflict in SDL, we had one episode where a group of students had a conflict and they reflected over it, and they gave me certain suggestions that how we can overcome in next SDL, how we should do as a faculty or as a team within the department, so that these type of conflicts do not erupt again. We worked over it. So that is, they are moving from simple reflection to critical reflection and going up to the reflexivity. That is what they are trying to tell us, the situation. So that opportunity of reflection can happen anytime. Now comes how to write. Various models which are based on scales or iteratives are available in the literature. But at our institutes, we have been talking more about Moon's reflection. Why so? Because it focuses on reflection in learning, where it has embedded reflection into the process of learning. It identifies the learning level of student, whether it is a superficial learning or it is a deep learning, or it is in between the two extremes. It also tries to explore the reflective activity that enables the individual to frame their own new learning experience. So that is making them think critically and have their own management protocol to discover something which can help them in a better approach to make a decision in near future. So cognitive structuring is coming up. So that is why I prefer to have a Moon's reflection. You can choose any type, whatever you want, but these are the reasons that why within the institute we prefer to have Moon's reflect. So what exactly it is? It has 5 steps. It starts from noticing. To be very honest, it is very difficult part to make a notice whether I should reflect on this thing or not. Noticing is the most important aspect, because it's like the emotional feeling comes up, the feeling of discomfort and apprehension is being associated with the process of noticing. So that is a very important aspect from where the information for reflection comes up. If the student doesn't notice, if we don't notice anything, why should I reflect upon that thing? Isn't that true? It's true with us also. If I don't notice, I will not reflect. So first thing is that whatever I am reflecting upon, it should be noticeable. That means there is something which is making me feel discomfortable, or I have an apprehension about that particular situation. Or I may be even feeling good about that situation, but I want to make it much better. Second, making sense. Making sense of an experience can be associated with a strong emotion. It is like, say, for example, an adverse event, death of a patient, and I need to disclose it to the attendant. But there is a profound amount of emotion associated, and if the student is not able to do that, what he will do? So he has noticed that he is not able to do this particular thing in this particular situation. So that's making sense to it, that why should I reflect? And then he will make up his lesson that how he is going to progress over it. That's a secondary thing. But first, he should be able to identify it. It can be even a simple type of an information that a particular fact which I could not recall. I forgot that thing. So that is what has been noticed, and that notice is making a sense. If I have forgotten it, I may not be able to explain some important aspects in my near future. So that notice is making a sense. Now, once it is being noticed, it's making a sense, I need to have a meaning out of it. How would you have managed the situation differently? That is making sense about that particular noticeable observation. Or how it can be asked, Is there anything that you could have tried? So that's a questioning thing, what makes sense about it. Now, the fourth step is working with the meaning. First, we had noticed, we found a sense of that noticing, whether it is important or not important for reflecting me upon that particular situation. Second, making a sense out of it, making a meaning out of it. Finally, working with that meaning. Now, working with the meaning means how would you again manage it in your future? How would you prevent it happening if you perform the task yourself? So you're questioning. This is a questioning frame, what is being given to the student as a trigger. Now, what all this is going to do as they are going to notice it, make a sense of it, work with the meaning out of it, they are changing themselves. Now, once they are changing, they are transforming. So the learning is transforming their either behavior or their skill or their cognitive domain. That is how the moon's aspect or dealing with the reflection, dealing with the learning approach works out. If you talk only about noticing, it's just not reflective. But as they keep on moving from one step to another up to the transformative learning, they are most reflective. Similarly, if they remain at a lower level, the learning will be superficial. But as they keep on thinking, making a meaning out of each and every noticeable component, they are transforming themselves. So they are going towards the deeper learning approach. That's what reflection does. Now, reflection can be done by an individual, or it can be also done as a group in a team. It's not necessary that every time an individual has to, the reflection, it has always to be a self-reflection. It can be also a group reflection. Now, what are the activities where it can be individualized and it can be grouped together? Say, for example, we can have SDL as a group, a reflection of the students as a group, or we can have it individual as well. Assessment of a reflective essay, it is individual. Learning portfolio, again individual. But if I want to say group, as I gave an example for SDL is one which we are doing at our institute. Journal club. Having a reflection after a journal club, after a case-based discussion. That also is very, very important. So these are other, if we want to improve upon the quality, it's not for students, but for us. If I want to improve the quality within the institute for one particular aspect, we need to have a group reflection. So we can have reflection written either individually or as a group. Normally it is being thought that it has to be mandatory and individual reflection. Not necessarily. But it should convey that meaning, that in-depth should be within the reflection. Who can help? I will be talking about the UGs. PGs, definitely their guides, their HODs can be their supervisors. They can help them to reflect better. But for UGs, their mentors, they can help them. Their supervisor in a group, they can help them to reflect well. Peer, even you won't believe it, our senior student, the senior batch student helped the junior batch student to get trained for reflection. We had a group of students in our senior batch. We trained them well. We asked them to reflect. And after we were confident that this group of students is now prepared to be as a co-supervisor for the junior batch. So it saved our time. It was a helping hand for us. That's what you can also do. The initial might be difficult, but later on they can be a helping hand for the faculties for reflection to see how the students are reflecting, the junior batch is reflecting well. So they can be a helping hand. Now, very important thing, in an educational scenario, how the reflection actually is going to work out. That's what we should be talking about. As per the AIME guide, the content what I have taken for the educational strategies to be developed in the reflection, I taken it from the AIME guide. It says that the self-regulated learning model by Jimers and Shrunk in 2001, it provides a framework to guide the educational strategies that can be used to develop reflection. So basically, it is a model where it helps the educator to understand the barriers and how to overcome those barriers as far as the reflection is concerned. So the first thing in an educational setup for the purpose of reflection is to motivate the students for reflection. And firstly, for reflection, it has to be self-efficacy. Now, what does it mean? There are various factors to know about the self, to have a self-regulatory approach. The first thing is that to notice. In the self-efficacy, the first thing comes up to have the approach to notice. Our students should be able to notice a situation where they can reflect. If they are not able to notice that situation, they just write reflection for namesake, then it is not going to have any learning outcome. So that's the first thing, to make them understand about the importance of noticing so that they have self-efficacy. Second, encouragement. It's a many times students get so bugged up that they don't reflect at all. So we need to encourage them. After every short duration of a time, there has to be a short training session, short sensitization session where they can revisit their own reflections. So that is how you need to encourage them. You need to make them develop a metacognitive skill for reflection, which starts from noticing, goes up to the process of learning. Now, we have talked a lot about noticing. Let me talk about processing for learning and to developing a professional practice or therapeutic relationship. What type of questions you need to ask? Does anything surprise me about the situation? What is this? Noticing. I'm noticing something. Is there something which is surprising me? Do I have the information or a skill to deal with this situation? So if I don't have that skill to deal with the situation, I need to learn that skill. But at least I have noticed that I don't have this particular skill. Do I need to have further information or a skill to deal with this situation either now or in near future? So again, that is a process, that's a learning thing. So they are trying to identify their own learning needs and trying to find the approach to search for those learning needs so that they can acquire those skills. Finally, future action. Now, what is a future action? Can be more purposive and deliberate. It has to be purposive, it has to be deliberate. That's how the future action of that individual will be. So once they notice, once they know what is their issue, what skills they are lacking behind, they know how they are going to search for those skills and where they are going to approach to identify those or fulfill those learning needs, they are going to prepare a future action plan. And that future action plan will allow them to revisit this action in your future. So that is how in an educational strategy it works out. Now, how they are going to reflect? Two ways. Either they tell the story or they can write a reflection. To be very honest, telling a storytelling has been a very old way of, or ancient way of our civilization. We have been hearing stories of different people from our ancestors. So what that is, they are trying to reflect upon, oh, bang, bang, this is the component, this is the moral of the story. What is there in a story? There is a beginning, there is a mid, and there is an end. The end of the story is the one which contains a very, very important message. And that is the future outcome. That is what the future outcome has to be attained. So reflection need not necessarily always be in a written format. But for our students, to be very honest, we need to have a written format, because stories, they poof out from your mind very fast because the new story has come up. But if it is written down somewhere, you can revisit it anytime. That is the importance of having a reflective writing rather than only a storytelling. One more important aspect in the educational background for the reflection is that it works as a portfolio. It is a document. Now, you'll ask me, why, ma'am, you're talking about a portfolio? How it is going to be a portfolio? Okay, today in AdCom, we are having an AdCom module which runs from first year to final year. In first year, reflection has been written for one particular situation which the student has noticed. Maybe a visit to a hospital. Now, as they move from first year to second year, they can revisit this particular reflection. And then as a teacher, if I look back, that is he improving about his future plan? Is he or she modifying the future plan? If he has not modified future plan, he's just writing it down. So he's not revisiting it. Then it is not a reflection, because no learning is happening from that reflection. It's just waste of time. But if the student has initiated a task, noticed, written a reflection, made something as a future plan, what he will be doing, and second time, if he has a similar type of an encounter, he uses that logic that there was something which I have encountered earlier. This is the plan which I prepared, worked on that plan, presented that plan in the next setup, and had a different outcome. That outcome can be good, that can be very good, or that can be awful also. Then he again reflects. So he is progressively improving his learning. So what is happening? Doing. Again. So cycle is going on and on and on. And that's what we require. So what is happening? A short-term memory is moving from short-term to intermediate to long-term. So superficial to deep learning is happening. So that is what we want. We want them to create a portfolio for each and every event, what they are doing by their reflection, so that we know whether there is a progression or not, or it is just more a typed component, copy pasted component. That's what majority of the students do. They just copy paste. They don't think about it in a broader perspective. So that is where reflection is very, very important as far as the educational strategies are concerned. One thing as a faculty, what we need to do, we need to create templates. We need to have templates, because our UG students, specifically when they are on pre and paraclinical setting, they are novice. They don't know. Firstly, they don't know. They don't want to learn. But we can motivate them to learn. And now if they are in a scope of learning, they don't know how to write it down. Firstly, reflection can be in their native language. It need not be in an English language. We are not here to test their English proficiency. If they write in English, it's good. But if they are not able to express themselves well in English, they can write it in their native language. We are having faculties who can read that native language. But we need to provide them a template initially. Later on, we don't need to have any template for them. We have different models of writing the reflection. I would talk about two ways to reflect. I think I have moved ahead with the time. Shall I continue? Dr.
Yes,
Poonam?
you can continue. Yes, you can continue for
Thank you.
a few more minutes.
I'll take just 10 minutes more. That's all.
Okay.
So this Gibbs cycle, it has 6 components: description, feeling, evaluation, analysis, conclusion, and the action plan. This is how the details are coming up. You can have more information if you want. I can forward you the link to have a better understanding of Gibbs model. There's another model which is termed as Vroff's model, where it starts from what happened. So description and feeling of Gibbs model are basically nothing but what happened. So what? The evaluation and analysis of the Gibbs model is nothing but so what? And what next? The conclusion and the future plan or the action plan is what you have to write about what next. So either you use the Roff's reflective model or you use Gibbs model of reflection, that's up to you. This is just one example, 3-minute reflection after a teaching session. These are the templates, how I give templates. I gave it to the students. What is the most important thing you have learned in this session? So students are invited to write about it. What else would you like to learn about this topic? So they are identifying their need. I'm trying to give them the triggers so that they can reflect in a better manner. What are the likely resources you will use to learn those learning needs which you have identified? When would you learn the learning need? That is timeline. Whether today, tomorrow, or after a week's time. That's very important. What evidence would you produce to show that you have learned the addressed issue? That means how you are going to evaluate that you really learned it or you didn't learn it. That is how the reflection after a teaching session can be attained from the students. Just give them and they will write it down. That is what they are reflecting. You are making them think about the thinking process, metacognition. Everything is having a challenge. These are some of the challenges of reflection. Emotionally challenging, very difficult. The students don't want to share it. There's a big gap between what I rate and what they rate. So we need to train them well. We need to encourage our students, but before we encourage, we should ourselves as supervisor learn the benefits of reflection. We should know how to reflect. We should know how to grade reflection. Then only we will be able to be very strong enough to teach our students about the skill of reflection. Medical institute should have learning modules for reflection. We are having a WAC course for reflective learning process. So we have created that WAC module. These are certain do's and nots for reflective writing. We need to be honest when we have to be reflective. It has to be subjective, analytical, and we need to invest time on it. It's not waste of time. That's what most of the people who reflect, they say that specifically those who are novice, they say that it's a waste of time. Hazards. This is very, very important thing. If reflection is not well written, it creates more of hazards. What type of hazards? Self-criticism, self-judgment. That's a very important, very tricky hazard what we have identified. So how we can overcome? Ask the students to take a perspective from a neutral observer. That's how you can help them. Second, ruminating or obsessing. That means engaging in a repetitive negative thought and getting blocked in that loop continuously. Ask them to look at different perspective and take small initiatives for the change. Don't go in a bulk change. Try to discover new ideas to have a better outcome. That's how you can motivate. So supervisors need to help the students to overcome those hazards. Use of self-reflection as a substitute of action. I know everything or I don't know anything. Either way around. That's what most of the students say. So self-blaming or what we say hype that I know everything. They remain stuck in that mood. So we need to point it out that this is not the truth. So these are some of the hazards. This is one of the reflective writing template which we used for after ECE activity, early clinical exposure for first year students. These were the different trigger questions. So that's I have kept what happened, so what, the Roofs and the Gibbs model together so that it becomes much clearer for you. That these are the triggers where the students will write down, and that will help them to understand their own learning needs and how they will going to address those needs. So similar type of templates for every reflection for initial students, undergraduate students, you need to prepare. You cannot have same type of question every time. When it goes for patient dealing, a bedside, the reflective template has to be a bit different. It will be more having more of the critical analysis and decision making questions. So you need to have templates. Even literature has talked about having concept map. We talked about concept map as a storytelling. Concept map being written either the way the Rolf has given a model or a Gibbs model or any other model you can follow. But concept mapping is also a way of reflecting. These are some of the studies which talk about having concept mapping with experience, analysis, and competency being achieved by the students. And this is the pie chart from that particular literature. I will skip few of the things because I would like to go for assessment. Assessment is very important. If you don't assess the reflection of the student, they will not learn what went well in their assessment and how they are going to improve upon it. Various models are available. There are different rubrics which you can find on the internet, in the literature, in the educational platforms. But what we have used is an holistic rubric by Moons in 2004. It has gradings from grade A to grade F. A means the highest and F means the lowest. We have modified this rubrics. We had a study where we prepared the undergraduate students for reflective thinking and writing, and their perspective was taken up. So the assessor, there were two different assessors, but if you see here, it is C1, C2, D3. Why we did this? We modified the Moon's rubrics further, because we found that a student having grade C and this student having grade C, they are in grade C as per the Moon's rubric, but the level is very different. There's a huge difference in the level of C what this student has written and the C what this student has written, although the content is same as per the rubrics of the Moon.
इस पे
So
जो है डीएल स्कोप के आगे
हेलो
जो हमारे
डॉक्टर
उसका
नेहा,
लाइट सोर्स कौन सा है?
प्लीज
फाइनल ईयर में कौन सा लाइट
म्यूट
सोर्स है?
योरसेल्फ। डॉक्टर नेहा, प्लीज म्यूट योरसेल्फ।
okay, so we had to create our own rubric based on the Moon's rubric, where we subdivided A into A 1, 2, 3, B into 1, 2, 3, similarly C and D. E and F we didn't have to change because they were very discrete. So that is how we modified the Moon's rubric and created a template for it as well. We gave that rubric assessment template to the students also. Students also graded themselves, and we could find that our grading, the difference between our grading and their grading, the inter-rater variability was quite high. So probably the reason what they suggested in their perceptual questionnaire was that they need more training sessions, samples, practice topics, more practice, and effective feedback also they required, so that they know how to score their own reflection. Because we don't want to handhold them throughout the life. We want them to be self-directed learner and to be a lifelong learner. That's why we need to teach them how to assess as well. This was a focus group discussion outcome of our research, where they, other than the cognitive gain, they also specifically mentioned that they had an effective attributional gains as well by introspective, improvising, venting out the emotion, and finally behavior modification. This is something really challenging thing. The behavior got modified. So there is a transformation by this particular approach. That's what we want. We want a transformation after the reflection of an individual. Let's help the student. Let's guide the student for self-directed learning. Let us give them the feedback to know where they are, so that they become more self-monitored. They improve upon their thinking. Once they improve their thinking, they become better learner. If they become better learner, they become better regulator, emotionally, mentally, socially, and they become better practitioner, and they have a better professional identity formation. That's what we want out of the reflective writing for our students in near future. Let's start reflecting and teach our students to reflect. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Any
very much.
questions?
Thank you, Dr. Pooja. It was a really very good session. You have covered all what, why, when, how about the reflection. Even assessment also. I am going to ask today how we should assess the reflection. So you have covered that thing also. But one thing in my mind is that for every reflection we cannot assess. Means most of us have this question in mind, how to assess the reflection each and every time, because it is very time consuming. When there is a batch of 100 and 200, then it is very difficult. So how we should go?
We also face the same issue. But what
Yeah.
we did, that we are 15 faculty members from 3 preclinical departments: anatomy, physiology, biochemistry. We have a batch of 150 students, and there are 15 faculties. We ask students to reflect on one particular event, whether it is an ECE or SDL, in 6 months time frame. And 15 students will be being assessed by one faculty. So it's like 15:1. Then it becomes very easy for a faculty to assess a reflection of 15 students and give them the feedback.
No, you mean
within
6 months,
6 months.
only one time. But
only once, because we also have a limitation.
yeah, that's what I am saying. But NMC says that after each and every means session, a student has to write reflection. So that is very difficult.
They can write reflection. They can write reflection, but we may
Assessment
not be
is only
able to
one.
grade that reflection because we have a faculty crunch.
Okay.
So this is how, firstly, we will be training the students. We train the students very well. right? That's the first thing. And second, one, reflection. We assess. So they have a feedback about how they should be assessing, and rest of the reflection they assess themselves, or we ask the peer to assess it. So that is how we have actually worked upon it.
Yes, we have to think as per our requirement and as per our feasibility, yeah, how we are going to use it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
So there are some thing has written in chat box. Let's see if there is any question.
You stressed about
Session.
transfer. There's one question you stressed about transformation, which is a long-term process. How an isolated session of reflection? No, isolated session may not be possible. Even in a single session, you may be able to stimulate the students to notice on which they need to reflect upon. It is really difficult to go to the level of transformation. That's what I said, that you can start up with the reflection, but your goal should not remain stuck up with there. As they move from first year to second to final year, and even to the internship, they should have that understanding of moving from being a reflector, being a critical reflector, and having reflexivity in their own reflection. So it's a long process. So I personally, if you ask me, I would prefer that it should be a mandate that the student should have reflection for ATCOM modules, because that is progressively going, and we can see their reflection and how they are using their future action plan in the subsequent task. Otherwise, it becomes very, because physiology, once it is gone, they won't even look into the logbook. So, in my opinion, ATCOM is the best way to initiate it.
Even early
Yes,
clinical exposure also.
yes, early clinical exposure also can be kept. Definitely, there can be.
Yeah.
There's
Good
one
evening,
question: reflection could be used as a part of portfolio. Yes, definitely. I explained it. It has to be a part of portfolio. That is why in ATCOM, during the what you say internship, the logbook does have a part of reflection in it, because that is a part of portfolio that improves, that is being used as a strength of their portfolio.
Good evening,
Yes,
ma'am.
there was a question. Yeah.
Ma'am, I would like to know more about group reflection. Has your college practiced it, or I mean, how is it? How is it done?
Group reflection we tried, but to be very honest, it didn't work well, because each group were being with different facilitators, and the zeal and the what we say the enthusiasm for every faculty, we cannot have the at the same level. So it didn't work well, but it does
Ma'am,
work if we.
ma'am,
Yeah,
is it
please.
they give oral reflections, or group is also written format only?
No, written.
Written.
Oral, written, everything is written. This time we are trying to work on having a reflective writing in the form of a concept map. Hopefully it works, because it is a group thing. I have done this type of reflection for my elective students this time. The initial first group, the second group is going on. The first group, they made a concept map for in the form of a reflection, and how they are going to progress upon it. It was quite interesting, but it was not so concrete, because they are new, they are novice. We need to train them. It helps. To be very honest, how much time it took you to be a critical reflector?
Yes,
I'm
ma'am,
sure
agree upon that.
many reflections made you go and think up to the level of being a critical reflector. So they will take some time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Welcome.
Once again, please clarify between the critical reflector and just a reflection. Critical reflection and reflection.
Okay. See, reflection is something what happened, you observe, you analyze it, and then you prepare an action plan. That's a simple reflection, what you talk about. What we write, normally what we ask the students to write. But when we say critical reflection, the outcome, what next, the topic of what next, where the conclusion and action taken plan comes up, it has to have a deeper approach of our thoughts and of our avenues, where depending upon the situation we are talking about. That means anything which will create a transformational change. I can give an example to it. Our third year students are going to clinical rotational wards. The student comes up and says that the blood pressure of a patient was so high, but the resident didn't take care of it. And I felt very bad that he was not even giving a hoot to it. So I thought of reading more about it and trying to analyze it and talk to the critical care faculties. So he did talk to the critical care faculties. He read a lot about it. He worked upon it. And that final year student was valued more than a postgraduate resident in the critical care department. That's what he said. So that learning, that act of observation made him think about a skill which he was lacking, which he learned, and he utilized that skill to transform himself, to be better than what other people are. That is critical reflection.
Deeper thinking.
Yeah, deeper thinking. That is why the deeper learning will happen.
Yeah.
If it doesn't go up to the level of transformation, a change, then probably it is a simple reflection. It's just a reflection. Ideally, as subsequently students move from first year to second to final year, specifically in the final year, they should be critical thinkers. They should be reflecting critically. Initially, first year, very difficult to identify. Maybe one person might, but on an average, majority doesn't. But once they reach to the clinical field, they do become critical reflectors.
Any other question? Query? Any query? No query.
I think it was too expensive.
Yeah, but it was really means attention catching. One of our participant has written also, मतलब
Thank you.
catch करके रखा attention seeking session. So really it was a very nice and thought provoking session. How to, because this is a very means difficult part कि कैसे बच्चों को सिखाएं, कैसे उनका लेना है, how to assess it. So this is really a very needed topic. That is why I kept it. So
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
keeping this topic, and we will soon be having a workshop where we'll be initiating not only with the self-directed learning approach, but talking more about having a critical thinking, metacognitive approach and reflection as well, where how to write and how to assess, both of the components will come
for
up.
outside faculty also, or
Yeah,
your
or outside also. Outside also.
when is this workshop?
Right now, probably mid of this year we have planned, but we are not very sure.
Okay, please share.
We'll share the information once it gets finalized. Would
Okay.
love to share it, but we'll be having limited faculties in age group, not more than 40, because
Yeah.
it's an online session, so we do have our own limitations.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So can we leave?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.